From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. Great to be with all of y'all this morning, Thursday, November 7th, 2024. A packed show for all of y'all today. We're going to be talking about, is the West finally started to take on China? There's some stuff happening here, and obviously with President-elect Trump and his focus on China, we're bound to see some movement, but we're seeing movement in unexpected places. So we'll talk about that on today's show, as well as Germany protecting security researchers and a whole bunch of patches and a new acquisition in the cybersecurity marketplace that I think is turning some heads as of this morning. So all of that and more on this morning's show. Make sure to subscribe, follow, comment, ask your questions. We'll try to get to some of them during the live broadcast, but if not, I always reply, whether it be on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, wherever. So just make sure to do that. Now, join me for our traditional coffee cup cheers. I've got my double espresso from Lavazza this morning. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Great. Let's start off with Canada letting TikTok know that they have to dissolve their Canadian business. Now, they're not blocking the app. They're simply saying you can no longer have any sort of business presence in Canada. And it's a very interesting take by the Canadians. It's actually a very interesting take on TikTok by the Canadians, and I'll tell you why. So what the Canadians are essentially saying to ByteDance, the Chinese parent company of TikTok, is dissolve your businesses in Canada. We're not going to block your app on the App Store, but we're not going to allow you to operate from Canadian territory. Now, what does that really mean? Is that going to have any sort of significance? Likely not. They're likely going to just transfer Canada responsibility to their Bay Area office and their US offices and let that continue there. Most companies do that as well. So the Canadian government just cost a bunch of Canadians jobs, right? Probably, and I think in Canada they have a few hundred employees. So a few hundred Canadians are going to find themselves out of a job or having to relocate on a special visa to come live in the US. So, you know, that's really what's happening there. But the big piece around this is they're really this is not even a slap on the wrist for TikTok, right? At the end of the day, what all this is kind of like lip service. If you want to stop TikTok, then you pass stringent privacy laws, you examine their algorithms, and you also create some sort of control over where that data resides and what kind of data they can store and keep. Canada didn't do any of that. They did a national security review. During that national security review, they determined that TikTok will remain there and that Canadian creators can still continue to make money on TikTok. And again, that's kind of the balance of government, right? Because we always look for government to kind of make decisions that are clear cut, but they can't because the government's kind of looking at the problem as an octopus, right? There's so many different things that feed into it. Is TikTok a national security threat? Yes. Do we want to have TikTok in our country? No. But if we block TikTok, how are we hurting our country? How much money are people making off of TikTok as creators that if we block TikTok, they would lose that revenue? And so that's part of the factor there for Canada in doing this with TikTok. Now, look, at the end of the day, I think that it's not good enough, right? It's just not good enough. I don't know what I would do different though. Like honestly, I don't know what I would do different than Canada because I understand all the different aspects to do it. Likely, like one idea, just kind of brainstorming here with all of y'all live on the show this morning, is I may have gone to Instagram. I may have passed stringent laws. I may have gone to Instagram and had Instagram potentially move those creators to their platform with the potential to do some sort of tax break in order for those creators to continue to make money and then give Instagram some sort of financial incentive to get those users across. And then I just block TikTok altogether. Get that, but Canada's just not that strong at dealing with this. However, the British government on Wednesday did order a Chinese-owned holding company to sell its shares in a Scottish semiconductor business following a UK national security assessment. This follows the new law, the United Kingdom's National Security and Investment Act of 2021. The government can scrutinize and intervene in business transactions like takeovers to protect national security in 17 sensitive areas of the economy. Future Technology Devices International is a semiconductor design business based in Glasgow. 3 years ago, it was acquired by a holding company with Chinese directors that triggered a review. 3 years later, the government notice said the review resulted in the Chancellor of Duchy of Lancaster, the head of the Cabinet Office, to order this holding company to sell 80.2% shares stake in FTDI within a specific period following a specified process. The divestment was deemed necessary to mitigate the national security risks of British developed semiconductor technology and associated IP being deployed in ways that are contrary to the UK national security. The divestment would prevent FTDI technology and intellectual property from being used to pose a risk to critical infrastructure which uses FTDI. By the way, this divestment piece, really smart on the British side. By the way, that's what Trump wanted to do with TikTok when he was president back in 2020 and 2019. When they were trying to get TikTok kind of divested, they said, we're not going to ban the app. We're just going to make sure that it doesn't have Chinese owners. People like it. People are making money. Companies are advertising. There's an audience there. And at that point, it was like Oracle that was up to potentially buy it and so forth. And then obviously COVID happened, the 2020 election, and that kind of fizzled away under the Biden administration. And we'll see if that's the direction Trump takes. It's very interesting. I'm writing my Saturday article for Substack, kind of what can we expect from President-elect Trump and his administration based on what we know from 4 years, but based on kind of like his history. So he's given around, I believe, 700 and some odd speeches in the campaign trail, of which in around 200 of them, he spoke heavily around IP theft and so forth. And so thank God for AI, because trying to break that down and kind of give you the most relevant information is there. Thanks to AI being able to disseminate that information much, much faster in order to get you an article here Saturday morning that you can really dig some teeth into and understand exactly what we expect there. But this, again, huge by countries finally realizing the national security threats that are posed, and that there's no independent Chinese-owned companies. If a company is owned by anyone from China, it's owned by the Chinese Communist Party and poses a risk, right? So there's that. Researchers are warning of an advanced malicious framework called WinOS 4.0, and that's getting distributed in installation tools, speed boosters, and optimizations for gaming application. The framework is a rebuilt from the Ghostwrite with several modular components, each of them that handle different functions. It's been seen targeting several campaigns. Fortinet says that it's an advanced malicious framework. It offers comprehensive functionality, a stable infrastructure, efficient control over numerous online endpoints to execute further action. The campaign using this framework has been previously documented by Trend Micro and KnownSec 404. They've observed it targeting Chinese-speaking users, leveraging SEO tactics, social media, and platforms like Telegram to distribute the malware. The malware itself, once it runs, retrieves a fake BMP file from a server. The file then extracts a DLL, which is responsible for setting up the execution environment. The attack chain involves multiple encrypted data and C2 communications to complete the injection of the malware. So now we're seeing malware targeting their Chinese counterparts. North Korea, for their end, have been observed targeting cryptocurrency-related businesses with a new multi-stage malware capable of even infecting Apple Mac OS devices. Sentinel-1 dubbed the campaign Hidden Risk. It's attributed it to Blue Noroff, which has been linked to malware families like Rust Bucket, Rustdoor, and Tudo Swift, among many, many others. The activity uses email propagating fake news about cryptocurrency trends. It infects targets via a malicious application disguised as a PDF file, according to Rafael Sabato, Phil Stokes, and Tom Hagel. The campaign likely began as early as July of this year and uses email and PDF lures with fake news headlines and stories around crypto-related topics. The FBI in September sent out an advisory that these campaigns are part of a highly tailored, difficult to detect social engineering attack aimed at employees at DeFi and cryptocurrency sectors. Again, North Korea, as a general rule of thumb, targets crypto as a way to finance their operation due to sanctions. So no surprise there. However, This one, far more sophisticated, targets Apple devices. So you want to adhere to this. We'll have more on this on our Substack. Go to jamesazar.substack.com. You can find a whole bunch of articles. You can find everything else there, including detailed approach with action items for you in order to help defend against some of these threats. The Federal Ministry of Justice in Germany has drafted a law providing legal protection to security researchers who discover and responsibly report security vulnerabilities to vendors. I want to say this again: responsibly report security vulnerabilities to vendors. When security research is conducted within specified boundaries, these responsibilities will be excluded from criminal liability and the risk of prosecution. Today, you could actually face that in Germany, which is why they're drafting this law. The new draft law amends Section 202A of the Criminal Code to protect IT security researchers, companies, and so-called hackers from punishment under criminal law. The criteria to meet security researchers are the following. So they've actually built a really good criteria. The action must be carried out with the aim of identifying a vulnerability or another security risk in an IT system. The researcher must intend to report the identified security vulnerability to a responsible entity capable of addressing the issue, like the system operator, the software manufacturer, or the Federal Office for Information Security. The act of accessing the system must be necessary to identify the vulnerability. This ensures the exemption only applies to the extent required for security testing without unnecessary or excessive access. So they've actually given a good boundary framework for security researchers to give them the legal protection they need in order to continue to do the important work they do. At the same time, the draft bill also introduces a penalty ranging from 3 months to 5 years of imprisonment for severe cases of malicious data spying and data interception. Again, they're just upping the ante against various actors. The offense would result in terms of what constitutes a severe case. They've also said that it results in substantial financial damage driven by profit and motive, conducted on a commercial scale and carried out as part of a criminal organization, or cases that compromise critical infrastructures like hospitals, energy suppliers, transportation networks, or affect the security of Germany or one of its states, including attacks originating from abroad. So all in all, this is now going to get there. We'll see if we'll see how this passes through Germany. We'll keep an eye on this, but this is great. Cisco on Wednesday announced patches for dozens of vulnerabilities in its enterprise product, including a critical severity flaw in unified industrial wireless software. That bug, CVE 2024-20418, has a perfect score of 10 out of 10 on the CVSS scale. It would allow a remote unauthenticated attacker to inject commands on the underlying OS with root privileges. The issue exists because the web-based management interface of the industrial networking solution does not properly validate input, allowing an attacker to send crafted HTTP requests. That successful exploit could allow the attacker to execute arbitrary commands with root privileges on the underlying OS of the affected device. So patches for the vulnerabilities were included in the Unified Industrial Wireless Software version 17.15.1. Owners running version 17.14 and earlier are advised to migrate as soon as humanly possible to this latest version. There are proof of concept and active exploits of this in the wild. CISA is getting ready to add it to the Kev catalog, I was told this morning. The Cliffy Threat Intelligence team recently came across an Android banking Trojan that's being observed targeting users in Europe and elsewhere. The company observed in late October there was a significant increase in a campaign they're following called DG Toxic. It's a China-linked piece of malware that's been used since at least mid-2022 to target Android users in Southeast Asia in an effort to steal crypto or funds from banking and other financial app. A closer analysis revealed differences in the code, so Cliffy started tracking it under a new malware family called Toxic Panda. According to the online fraud management and prevention firm, Toxic Panda has RAT capabilities. It enables attackers to conduct account takeover through a technique known as on-device fraud. On-device involves initiating transaction on a compromised device and stealthily modifying account settings, allowing the attacker to conduct malicious activity without triggering any security mechanisms put in place by banks, including identity verification and behavior-based fraud detection. Cliffy identified 16 financial institution apps targeted by Toxic Panda in Southeast Asia, Europe, and in Europe, it's in Portugal, Spain, and France, also in Italy, as well as in Latin America and places like Peru and other countries, and some places in the US, by the way. But obviously, if you can tell by the map, Italy, Portugal, Hong Kong, Spain, and Peru, that's all there. Khalifi noted more broadly, they're observing a marked shift as Chinese-speaking threat actors expand their focus to new geographical regions, especially targeting financial institutions for some money. So there's that. In our final news for this morning's show, CrowdStrike has announced that they're acquiring a friend of the show to Omer Ben and the team over at Adaptive Shield. Congratulations. The acquisition is a $300 million acquisition of Adaptive Shield by CrowdStrike. Adaptive Shield is a SaaS security posture management company. They've been on the show before. We've done a whole bunch of stuff with them. I've done stuff with them on the Hacker News webinar series. A great company with great leadership, a great group of people. So CrowdStrike's done a very, very smart move here, acquiring Adaptive Shield. Congratulations again to the Adaptive Shield team and Mauer Bin. You guys have worked very, very hard. Congratulations, and looking forward to seeing how you guys integrate with CrowdStrike. Again, this is going to give CrowdStrike a lot more in the identity management space, especially across SaaS. So going from endpoint to SaaS will continue to create CrowdStrike as best in class. And by the way, watch now, you'll see Adaptive Shield competitors, SentinelOne, and other start to talk to them as they see CrowdStrike kind of pick this up. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back on Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest. Until then, please make sure to go check out our Substack, jamesazar.substack.com. Have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.